Today we're back in the studio talking about board portal services, and I want to pick up on something very important. I want to talk about the simplicity of these services. Charlie, how easy are these services to use?
Thankfully, remarkably simple. They're very, very easy to use, both for the administrative staff who create the books and then for the directors and executives who download, review and annotate the books. So
you don't necessarily need to be hugely literate in IT terms to be able to, if you're a director, for example, to be able to use the system, and the IT staff will be able to adopt it reasonably straightforwardly.
Absolutely. In fact, for the IT function of a company, this is very, very helpful because they typically pay no part in it at all. We would install the technology for the administrative staff on their laptops and desktops. We would then train them. And then for the directors who are using it on an iPad, they would then download an application, the Board Books app from the iTunes store, and we would then provide training for them to be able to use it. And from there on in, it's extremely simple for them.
Do your potential clients expect this type of service to be more complicated?
That's a good question. I think they probably do. I think they probably expect this type of technology to take learning, integration, possibly even code writing. The reality is that we're very fortunate that it is a one-size-fits-all type of technology. It works in all companies equally well, big, small, UK, non-UK. It's a very good, easy technology to implement.
Training clearly is going to be a key issue. You provide that training, I take it?
Indeed, it's core to what we do. So there's an account management structure who handles the implementation for a client. They would provide training for the client staff typically on site with us, and then for the non-exec directors, typically by telephone calls to assist them in downloading the application, being able to receive the books, and then interact with them.
Right, so what sort of time commitment would that take from a non-executive director, for example? How long would it take to train him or her to use the system?
My answer to that question when I'm asked it by companies is if someone is relatively IT literate, may already have an iPad, it's less than 10 minutes. If they've never used an iPad, they may not be that literate, it's no more than half an hour from beginning to end.
Do you find sometimes that directors are resistant to change? They're used to doing things in one way and they're uncomfortable with switching to a new way?
I think if that question had been asked 2-3 years ago, the answer probably would have been yes. I think the answer now is almost certainly no.
That's because they're already aware of the benefits of iPad technology, or they appreciate, what is it that makes them less resistant to change, if I can put it that way?
I think it really comes down to three things when you get down to it, when you look at it. The first is they're very conscious of the size and weight of the paper packs that they're receiving now. It's a burden, it's hard work for them. They're equally aware that security is vital in their business and any other business, and they learn that ours is more secure than the alternatives. But then the last aspect is the technology. The iPad is a very simple, robust, powerful tool, and they're able to see demonstrably that they can use it easily.
So Charlie, presumably there are further business benefits of this type of service in terms of freeing up people's time, not least the company secretary, to do other more productive things.
What happens actually is that the company secretary, the role in terms of board paper production changes from being a fairly manual, labour-intensive, time-consuming, photocopying type of process to one purely on focusing on the intelligence in the board papers. It moves from being just get it out the door to being able to really focus on the quality of the information being provided. It's manna from heaven for their point of view. Equally, for the executives of companies, it's a way for them to get the information on a device wherever they are. And in fact, with a lot of our customers, they move from just using it in the board, from the main PLC board, down into the executive committees of their business or the overseas parts of their business. And their growth expands hugely from just their board down to the depths of an organisation.
That's a really interesting point. Are we talking just about disseminating information to people, or are the people who are receiving that information, the directors or the people in the executive committees you've just described, are they able to actually work on these papers and make updates and changes and feed that back into the system?
So what I say to customers when they ask me this question is that the business was created for board directors to receive and review papers. What it's now clearly become is a way for companies to pass confidential, secure information to their employees or directors or non-exec directors. They're able then to read and review this as I've explained. What they're not typically able to do is create papers and mark them up and distribute them between their colleagues. It's not designed for that.
But board papers can be customised for individual directors, for example, so that, that people are getting particularly relevant information just for them.
Customizable is perhaps not the best word because directors have got to receive the same information. What you might find is that certain directors need to have slightly different supplementary information. If they're focusing on finance for the sake of an argument, they would have a different flavour of the packs, but the individual papers would typically be exactly the same.
And do they need to always be online when they're reviewing the packs? If they're out of range of a Wi-Fi signal, for example, or a 3G signal, is that going to be a problem for them?
One of the true beauties of the diligent service is that the online and offline version of our books is exactly identical. So when a director logs in initially and sees for him or her that there is a book available, they then synchronize it down to the device. Over a Wi-Fi connection, that's a matter of seconds. Over a 3G connection, it's a couple of minutes at the very most. They've then got their version available on their iPad for their own usage. It is exactly the same offline and stored as online and in the cloud.
And finally, Charlie, if a company makes the decision to move from a board paper pack to this system, how long would you expect that transition process to take?
We say to our customers that the typical process is around 6 weeks. We can do it slightly more quickly if they wish. It's rarely longer. That's the typical time frame.
So 6 weeks to go from having first contact with you to being up and running with the new system?
6 weeks from signing a contract, which provides confidentiality type of agreements, through to being live in a board environment.
Charlie, thank you very much for talking us through the simplicity of the system. In the final part of our video series, we're going to be talking about the support element of board portal technology.